So something must have popped up on your screen, and your being here suggests that you are providing us consent to record the session. So welcome once again. I am Astha, I work at AuthorAID, and today we are having what I know is very fascinating webinar ahead of us on open peer review with our AuthorAID steward and the facilitator of today's webinar, Aurelia Munene. So before we move forward, I'd like to set some housekeeping rules. As we all know, we are recording the session. Your participation will indicate consent for the recording. The two is closed captions are available. If you click on the three dots at the right-hand side of the toolbar, you will see the captions and you can access the closed captions. If you have any technical issues, you can directly text me in the Zoom, or you can email me at asta.subedi@inapps.info. To reduce the background noise, we will mute everybody except the speaker, and we'd also like to request you to remain muted throughout this period. You can raise your hand feature in the participant panel if you would like to ask a question during the Q&A session, which is at the end. But in between also, if you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat box. Please make sure you utilize all the interactive features of the Zoom to the fullest. Now, I would like to introduce the facilitator of today's program, Aurelia. She is the founder of Eider Africa. Together with a team of dedicated African scholars, she designs and delivers research mentorship programs with and for early career researchers in Africa. Aurelia is board member of the Association of Faculty Enrichment in Teaching and Learning, which trains faculty on transformative learning and teaching approaches, including open peer review. She has authored over 40 reports, 2 book chapters, and 5 journal articles. She is also a research steward at AuthorAID. She also works in the field of gender equality and social inclusive, sexual and reproductive health and social development. Over to you, Aurelia.
Okay, thank you, Asta. Happy to be here. Good to see you all. So I'll not repeat my name. My name is Aurelia. I will not repeat that or anything about myself because we just had it. I'll just go straight to the session and invite you to a discussion on open peer review. I don't know how many of you have had this discussion before, but it's something that I learned last year through a program we implemented with one organization that has been spearheading a lot of good resources on open peer review. It's called pre-review. And I'm also one of the in the advisory committee of this organization. And that's when also I was introduced to ideas of open peer review. And that's what I would like to share with you today. So we are going to have an interactive session. And so that's me. So what we're going to discuss today, we'll talk about unpacking a bit open peer review. Perhaps more people are conversant with peer review, but today we are really unpacking the idea of open. What does it look like when we say peer review is open? And then we'll look at what is the purpose, what is the significance of opening the peer review process. And then we shall have a step-by-step process of conducting an open peer review. So we will have, it's a mixture of what and how. What is peer review, why is it important, and then how can we do good reviews. And the invitation today is to say that the space of, when we talk about open peer review, this is the mindset I would invite you as we conduct this training. It is for everyone. The ethos of open peer review is really to remove the hierarchies within peer review and make a claim that everyone can have an opportunity to carry out a peer review. So I invite you to see yourself as potential reviewers, even if you've never done a peer review, so that then this discussion can also be relevant for you. So it's relevant for all of us, especially because we are all in the scholarship space. Most of us are in the research space where we're interacting a lot with other people's work. And so all of us in the space of open peer review, we know we can always give a review to our peers, and that's why we are here. So let me just start off by some questions to get us warmed up. I want to find out on chat, how many have carried out a peer review? You have conducted a peer review of any kind. How many on chat? Let's see. You can put thumbs up. How many have done a peer review before? 12. Wow, we are having some gurus here. Thank you. How many have done a peer review before? So you can put a thumbs up to say yes. You can say how many have you done? Let's see, amongst us, we are 59. How many have done a peer review? Okay. So we have 8, we have 4. I have, yes, good. 10. Wow, 10. Oh my gosh, we are over 20. Wow. Great, 5. Good, wow. Okay, James has already answered the second question. How many have not done peer review? How many have never done a peer review? They've never had their work reviewed before. 8, I haven't. So you've never done a peer review, you've never had your work reviewed, your scholarly work reviewed. I haven't. And I also want to find out how many have had their work reviewed. How many have submitted their work to whatever space? It can be to peers, it can be to a journal. How many have had their work reviewed? Peer reviewed. Good, I can see the chat is bursting with great, my work has been reviewed, I have. So we have a good balance of people who've done reviews, of people who've never had reviews done, of people who have had their work reviewed. So I want us to go on Jamboard, all of us. Let me put the link on chat. I want us to go on Jamboard, and it's accessible to all of us. Click on it, and I would like us to now share our experience of when you are peer reviewing other people's work, or when your work was reviewed. So let me open the Jamboard so that we can all see what people are putting up. So for those who have not used Jamboard before, it's a pretty easy tool to use. I can see some people already there. Let me just share it on the screen for us to see. So we have 2 questions. So what we do on Jamboard, I'm sure you can see my screen. You pick a note from here. So you pick a note from here, and then you write your response, and then you click save. Then it will just come on the screen. Okay. So the question we are having on this page is, what was your experience carrying out peer review? For those who said 10, 4, 20, what was the experience? And I've put it very open for you to just describe your experience openly. You can say whatever about experience. It can also be experiences for those who've done 2 or 3. What has been your experience? Just choose the ones you want to share with your experience. So that's the first page for those who've done the review. The second page is for those who have had their work peer reviewed. If you've submitted some work for peer review, what has been your experience? So pick a sticky note, write down what has been your experience when you have had your work peer reviewed. So let's get working. We have 5 minutes for this. So those who've done the 20 reviews, what was the experience? Those who've had their work peer reviewed, what was that like? To have someone look into your work, how was that for you? So someone is really an artist, they're really drawing, but we are not drawing, we are using sticky notes. So just pick a sticky note here, type in what you need, click save. You can choose whatever color you want, and then it will just come up. Okay. Okay, someone is choosing to write with a pen. You don't need to write with the pen. It will become a bit messy. Pick a sticky note here. After you can see me showing a sticky note. Is it showing?
Yes, it is showing. But
okay. So pick a sticky note.
your voice is breaking a little. Your voice is not as clear always.
Oh, okay. I'm so sorry.
No, it's all right.
Let me move.
Yeah, thank you. For those of you who are finding it difficult to write in the Jamboard, can directly message here and I'll put that in the Jamboard.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. I'm sorry, my internet sometimes goes back and forth. So please bear with me if I'm going in and out with my voice, but I'll try to speak louder.
No, it's not the internet. I think it's the clarity of the voice. Like your video is not breaking. It's just the voice. I think it has to do with the speaker.
Oh, okay. The speaker. Okay, we can see some answers coming in. Let me admit all so that I can see. Those who've had their work peer reviewed, please share your experience. How was it to have your work peer reviewed? You can also put your response on that, please. Those who've had their work peer reviewed, please share your experience, put it on chat. If you can't use Jamboard, don't worry. Asta, please let me in. I'm using another device so that I'm audible.
I was mute and I was talking. I was busy putting the sticky notes, so I think I have let you in. And everyone, please share your experiences on the chat box. We have been. Yes.
Okay, so we are coming to the end. Okay. We are now coming to the end of, oh, thank you. I've seen those who have experience carrying out peer review. Don't worry, there's someone who wrote over, but we are all learning, don't worry. Is my volume better now, Asta?
Yes, much better.
Okay, so let's look at what people have said, those who have carried out peer review. One says, I was very scared as I waited for, what was your experience carrying out peer review? This one says, I was very scared as I waited for the reviewer's comments. Okay, so this is someone who received peer review, but when I resolved to look at them from a positive perspective, to be focused while responding to questions, so I think it was better. So someone started off with being very scared of the review. Someone else says, doing peer review gives me an opportunity to analyze other people's thoughts. Okay, thoughts, that's interesting. It was an opportunity to learn on other people's work and their writing style. Great. Getting it peer reviewed was a good opportunity. However, it took a lot of time, almost a year. I think this is someone who was receiving peer review. Someone else says it was tedious. However, it became much better with more reviews and the subsequent ones. So this is your first time being a peer reviewer can be very tedious. I think that's what the person is telling us. It really helped to improve my own work. Amazing. I think doing peer review is a gift to yourself, because as you analyze other people's work, as you give feedback, you're also improving, implicitly also learning something about your own work. So it also opened avenue for ideas for new research. Great. So keep them coming. We will come again as we continue. I can see they're coming up. We will come again. Keep them coming. So let me stop sharing now the Jamboard and now go to the slides. We will come back again and discuss a bit more our experience. So thank you for sharing that experience. So now let's move on and really unpack peer review. So as most of you may know, of course, peer review, it's an activity that really takes place within the scholarly space. It is a process where scientists, scholars, in quotes, peers, evaluate the quality of other scholars' work. And the reason they do this, why is this an important activity within the scholarly space? Because you aim to look at the work and ensure that it is rigorous, it is coherent, it is founded on previous work, and adds to what we already know. Remember, the purpose of why we do research is to create knowledge. One of the purposes is to create new knowledge, new insights into something we already knew, new perspectives of understanding something, or even something that is already there, but we have a new lens of looking at it. So the peer review process is a great scholarly endeavor of ensuring rigor in science, so that then when someone produces work and says, this is knowledge, this is information that has relied on evidence, we can accept it because a group of other scholars have reviewed this work. So ultimately, peer review also improves the author's competences and skills as a researcher. So once you do so many peer reviews, you also become better in your own work, in your own research work, because you're exposing yourself to a lot of other people's work. And by giving comments, it forces you to be analytical, to be critical, and that's the same skill you will apply in your own work. However, peer review being a critical process in the scholarly activity has been met with a lot of critique. Sometimes, as you can see from the picture, I don't know what you can interpret from the picture. Can someone maybe say what they can see? One person. What can you see? One person can unmute. What can you see from the image? Anyone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. What can you see?
Okay. I can see an author with a paper on his hand trying to get to publishing. And along the way, there are many obstacles, which I can say they are like kind of dangers and some obstacles trying to protect or to, stop him from getting to the publishing point. So, but the end of the ultimate goal of the publishers probably, the obstacles is just to, make him kind of smarter and find a better way of getting to his destination.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Someone is also saying a researcher is waiting. A researcher is waiting to publish and the reviewers trying to stop him. So you can imagine that this is a very important scholarly activity. However, the experience of the scholar as they are on their journey to being published sometimes can be very violent. Instead of feeling like people are waiting for you with warm hands, appreciating the work that you have done for all those sleepless nights, sometimes it might feel like people are waiting for you with weapons. Some people have experienced peer review in this almost violent way. So it's like either you can perish even in the process, and not perish or die, but even perish in terms of your motivation as a scholar. The other perspective of peer review, I don't know what else you can see, you can put on chat, is the idea of a black box. You put in your paper to whatever journal that you're publishing your paper, it goes through a process, all you receive are your comments and the things to revise. But in between when your paper was being reviewed, there is no conversation with anybody, there is no clarification. So what you receive are comments, and you never know, most times you may never know who actually read your paper. So you cannot even have a dialogue with them. So it is based on these experiences that the concept of open peer review has found embrace in the scholarship space, where people are now saying that this idea of experiencing peer review as a violent experience, as a black box where you do not interact with anybody, all you get are your comments, then we need to relook it. Is it really advancing science? Is it really making many scholars to perish on their journey? And that's why we are here today, because of these experiences. So the idea of open peer review is a process. It is a process of opening, and you can open the peer review in many ways. So it's a process moving from double blind. Double blind is a type of peer review where the author and the reviewer identities are not known to each other. So both the author and the reviewer do not know each other. I had an experience where my paper was reviewed. I don't know who reviewed, but when I read the comments that they shared, that was very early on in my career. I'm still an early career researcher, but I remember the comments that I was given. Some of them, I was feeling like I need to tell her this is actually what I meant, but I did not know who he or she was. So we could not even have a conversation of me explaining exactly how I meant it, and then we can have a discussion, and then she can guide me better. So double blind is where none of each of you know each other. The reviewer, the author, mystery. Single blind is where the reviewer could know the author's identity, but don't know other reviewers' identity. So I, as a reviewer, could know this is the paper of so-and-so, but this paper is being reviewed by other people, other reviewers, but we have no conversation with those other reviewers. So I just receive a paper, I give my comments, I send them over. The same paper is received by another reviewer, send the comments. So it's up to the author to kind of figure out how to navigate comments also from different reviewers of the same paper. So that is single blind. What about a more consultative process? And that is where the realm of open peer review falls, where the reviewer knows the author and also knows other people who are reviewing that particular paper. So it is open in that sense. I know the author and I know the other people who are reviewing the paper. And I know what is going into many people's mind. Will it be an objective process? When we all know each other, will I be objective? And that's why we are also here today. How can we, if we are participating in open peer review, make it also an objective process? Because I know that's the main critique of most people. But if I know you, then it will bias how I review your paper. Okay, so we are also going to address that in this discussion today. So just think about open peer review as that process of making the identities of reviewers and author open, and also the reviewers themselves, because also reviewers need to converse. If they're working on the same paper, it would be great to have a conversation. What did you find in this methodology? I think this is what I think. What do you think? And then come into a consensus. Okay, so let's see the different ways you can open peer review. So open peer review, you can open identities where the author and the reviewers they know each other. That one we've already known. You can also have open reports. This is where the reviewer's report is open, is published online. Think of most of the reviews that we get, they're never open. They're never published. You never get a sense, especially if your paper was reviewed by many people, you never get a sense what really was, from a broader perspective, how was this paper reviewed? But when reviewers publish their, make open their, how they did the review, they put their report online. It gives also other people an opportunity to explore. Oh, okay, so this is how this paper was reviewed. Other scholars are able to look at that peer reviewer's report and also give more insights. But some people will say, I don't want my peer review to be published. I might feel a bit shy that people will see how I reviewed. But of course, it's a process. But it's part of opening, where you open your review and people can review your review and give you feedback. It also helps you to grow. The other type of openness is open participation, where anyone can contribute to the review process, anybody. And this, we have done it with the project that I mentioned before, and I'll show you the members of that project. And this work has been led by pre-review organization. You can always check them. Where we took a paper, the authors, I remember the authors were from South Africa. We had a Zoom. The authors were present. The paper had been sent 2 weeks before. It was already published. So this was a review after publication. And then we had read the paper, and then we developed a Google Doc with questions that were guiding the review. And I remember we were 50 of us, and everyone was commenting on their review of how they reviewed the paper. If it's the methodology, this is what I found, this is what I think the background should have had. So all those people concentrated together and reviewed that paper. And then we had a discussion with the authors who were in the room, and they could also answer the questions that we have. So it was such a rich scholarly endeavor because everyone was a reviewer, but the others were also there and we were having a discussion. So open participation is another way that peer review can be open. And if you go and look at sites like pre-review, they even publish this type of open reviews where many people are collaborating. They've published them already, so you can always check them. Open interaction is where we have the discussion between the author and the reviewer and the reviewers themselves, where they sit down. Maybe I've reviewed a paper and then I say, I think I would like to talk with the author, and then have a discussion. Open manuscript posting. This is preprints. Preprints, these manuscripts that you can submit for review before they are actually published in an actual journal. So also people have submitted their manuscript as preprints, and then people give review, and it really strengthens you when you're actually going to review. Then we have open final version commenting, when you have a final version of your paper, and then people are openly commenting on it. And quite a number of journals right now are really accepting the idea of open peer review. So it's not foreign. It's not a foreign concept in the publishing space. Or having open platforms, for example, at peer review. Sorry, someone needs to mute. So these are the different ways in which open peer review you can open the peer review process. You can read more about this. I will share the slides to be able to see how people are opening the peer review processes and making it a richer scholarly experience. Let me know if you have any comments, questions as we go along. A man is holding his paper on the hand. Okay, thank you, Mai. Okay, talking about the SWOT. Yes. So let's continue. Please stop me. After there's someone who needs to mute.
Yeah, I have muted them like twice. Please mute yourself if you are not talking. Thank you.
Okay, I know I'm talking a lot, but so what would you think, before I move on, what would you think is the benefit of open peer review? Now that we've talked about opening the peer review process, let me see on chat, unmute yourself. What would be the benefit of this process? In scholarship, what are you seeing could be the advantage of this approach to peer review? Let's hear some people's voices. Let's hear what would be the advantages or the benefit of opening the peer review process.
Okay, can I go ahead?
Yes.
All right, my name is Naziri Imam from Federal University of Ekiti, Nigeria. And I'm also an early career researcher, or let me say a novice in research. But one thing I'm very happy that open peer review is going to address is the issue of compromise, or let me say unethical standards within the system. For example, I have an experience whereby I submitted a paper and it was peer reviewed. However, the peer review told me that I should include some articles, which means I should cite those articles. I'm not sure if they are the authors of the articles, but when I went through the articles, I discovered that the articles are not truly relevant to what I'm trying to publish. They are not that really relevant. So the open peer review process, I think, will take away all those kinds of unethical standards that people are using backdoor process to bring into the system. So that is just my perception of the open peer review, and is a good idea if truly adopted by the academic system.
So thank you for that. And you see, if there was an opportunity for you to speak to the reviewers and tell them, thank you for sharing these articles. However, I do not see like they're relevant to my work, but you can actually let me know why you sent them. Maybe there's something I'm missing. So because that discussion is missing, and then you don't include them, then that's it, so it becomes like, for me, I feel, because there is no conversation, and I'm not here to preach like open peer review is the best thing that ever happened to the world, but I'm just saying that opportunity to speak to a reviewer and have that discussion sometimes can enrich that process better, as opposed to you now thinking this is not relevant, then let's just stay the way it is now. So thank you for sharing that. Someone had their hand up, but I can see some comment. Someone is saying, Mai is saying, open peer reviewers mean you can get many comments from people online. Yes. So there is the online version, but there is also open peer review between an individual reviewer and an author. So not everything has to be online. It's not open because it's online. It's open because the identity of the author and the reviewer is revealed and other reviewers. So there is also that level of open peer review. So not always is everything online, okay? So I think that's why Mai is asking, what about online bullying? That's a very important concern. It makes reviewers more objective. Does it mean everyone wants open peer review? Certainly not. Of course, as we are advancing in science, sometimes we don't all our work to be out there. But as I said, open peer review can be between you and the reviewer. That's already open because we are coming from a system where you don't even know the reviewer does not even know you as an author, okay? So the sites that are doing open peer review online are very strict, put a lot of safeguarding, even on bullying. And sometimes they even invite very specific people to these reviews so that there is no that bullying. I'm just answering the questions on chat. Yes, so that's a good observation. Discussions can also reduce rejection rates. Absolutely, because then you will have clarity on what exactly the reviewer wants. And I think it's more objective, I guess, because you're now having a discussion, you can have a back and forth. And today, as I told you, we will discuss how can you ensure objectivity as you're doing the open peer review. So I've seen a few hands. Am I saying, do you mean that the paper will have hidden author when the paper is online? No, when the paper is online, the author will be known. But I'm just saying, being online is one way of opening. There, you can also have open peer review through having an email discussion with the reviewer without having been online, okay? So, and of course, by the time our author is agreeing for their work to be reviewed online, they've already, consent has been sent, they have agreed, and they are ready. And then you have a group that is really managing that process as well. I saw a hand. Anyone with a hand before we go on? Okay, please put on chat. So why we do open peer review? Why is it beneficial? Yes?
Can I quickly say something?
Yes.
Sorry, I dedicate from South Africa. Yeah, when we're talking about this open peer review, I could see that it goes either way. Like there are a lot of advantages that goes with it, from experience. Like the part of objectivity, yes, it makes the reviewer actually to be objective with their reviewing process because this will be reviewed from the few reviews that I have had myself. I make sure that I state reasons and but clearly the author to make corrections, but you find that you don't actually have this kind of luxury or this openness. There's this learn. It gives kind of a learning curve in a way that the reviewer and the learner and the author can both learn one or two things from each other or one another, depending on the numbers of people involved. And it brings about this better understanding, and that's because I'm just speaking from experience, from what I went through during the course of my first, when I published my first paper. I had to even talk to my supervisor that is like this. I was thinking that this, because the journal is from the US, so I was having this feeling that they just did not want this paper because I'm from sub-Saharan Africa. I'm telling you the truth because of what I went through. And like you've said, it's kind of difficult for you to have that interaction with them because you don't actually know them. You don't know who to interact with. So eventually, you just lay all your complaints on the editor. That's the person that you now converse with. I don't know what now happens between the editor and the reviewers. But what I'm just trying to say is that there are a lot of things that comes with it. Like when I was even reviewing too, there was a part where I was asked if I would prefer my name to be published. And I said no. The reason being that after reviewing this paper, I could see that this paper just need to be rejected because the methodology was wrong, but it was actually a scoping review. You understand? The methodology was wrong. And I asked them not to publish my name because I wouldn't want someone to, this cyberbullying thing. People can easily be fished out these days. So that's why I said that this open peer review thing, it goes either way. I don't know how they are going to, how they will be able to control it in such a way that it will be objective and bias-free. That's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I think one of the ways of controlling the bias and in terms of open peer review, and thank you for sharing your experience, is like trainings like this, whereby we now have trainings to reflect on how can we manage bias in the open peer review process, or even peer review in general. How can we actually make sure we have high quality reviews? And that's what we will do today. So I think by raising awareness and allowing this conversation, critiquing even what we are talking about, allowing new insights, is how we are going to make open peer review better from where I sit. So this we are doing today is one of those processes. All those ideas, all those doubts are very important in terms of enriching this. So thank you for that. So why open peer review is beneficial? One, it's a decolonizing activity because we've known that peer review is not a bias-free process. Some of the biases, as we are going to see, originate from a colonial mindset about the people you're reviewing their work for. So it's an activity of decolonizing academic practices by creating equitable opportunities for those researchers who are considered marginalized, that even them, through open peer review, their work can be recognized, their work can be availed to more reviewers, to a diversity of reviewers, and they can be able to get insights. Also, open peer review is likely to improve the quality of scholarly feedback, because then you can have that discussion amongst reviewers, between the author and the reviewer, and you can all then enrich that scholarly activity. Higher education, those higher education institutions that are running their own journals, I think if you introduce open peer review, whereby those people who are submitting journals to your university journal, they can have opportunity to have open peer review, you might have more people wanting to publish in your journal because they know it will be a guided process. It will be a process where it is there isn't a lot of like you're not just receiving comments, you're actually dialoguing with someone. You might find more people actually publishing with you. Also supervision. When supervision skills, as if you're a lecturer here, it can also improve your own supervision skills. Remember, even lecturers do peer review of the thesis. And sometimes the way they give those comments, some people have said it is so difficult to even comprehend the comments. So as you improve on open peer review, allowing other people to review your review can also improve how you supervise. And then open peer review creates open spaces for more voices, more stories to come into the scholarly space. So this is a group of people that were part of that project. We were 5, but as I said, pre-review, which is constituted of this group of amazing researchers, are the ones who have led this work, and they have great materials, which I will share with you, which you can also use to train in your own institutions, in your own journal clubs, so that you can also improve the process of peer review. So what we did in this project, we adapted those materials because we were training within the African context, so we adapted them, but the foundational work was done by them. So now we now go into the how. How then do you do a good peer review? We have said open peer review can be done by anybody within the scholarly space. Anybody meaning someone who has been trained, even from bachelors, you can still give your own voice and review a paper. But then how can we do it in a way that is systematic, in a way that someone can actually track how you did it? So there's a 6-step method that I'm going to discuss with you, which was originated from pre-review. And the first step is checking your biases and assumptions. This is a must do as a peer reviewer. You have to sit with yourself and look internally about the biases that you're likely to carry in the review process. Step 2 in the review process is gaining a conceptual understanding of the paper that you're going to review, and we are going to look at what is that exactly. Step 3 is when now you identify major and minor issues in the paper that you're reviewing. Okay, remember, not everything that you review is a major issue, but sometimes because the distinction is not there, we can overwhelm an author very much by just giving them comments, and they cannot discern which is major, which is minor, which is urgent, which is so important that my paper won't be published. Because that is not clear, sometimes authors also become very confused. Then how, after we identify issues, we need to give them feedback. How do we give feedback in peer review that is clear? And we are going to see what does clear mean, that is constructive, that is actionable. Because you can give people feedback and they cannot action on it. They just sit on it wondering, okay, what does this person really want? And then the other thing is, how then do we put all this review together in a coherent way, such that when I, as an author, whether it is in the open peer review, and as we say, this can also be used by still the people using the other types of peer review, how can I get that coherent feedback such that now I'm able to understand what the reviewer meant? And then step 6, I, as a reviewer, have to review my review. And there is a guide that pre-review developed. How can I review my review? You know, how can I grade it in a way that I check my review, making sure it will be well understood, making sure that the person receiving it will actually benefit and have value from it. So this is the 6 steps I want us to go through. And I think it can help all of us in whatever space we are giving review. So step 1 is to assess your bias. Your biases, your prejudices that you come with as a reviewer. And a pre-review also has developed this guide. I will also share. It has developed in the slides when I'm sharing them, the guide that helps you figure out what are some of the biases that I carry in the peer review process, so that then you're able to do a peer review that is non-judgmental and self-reflective. So absolutely, all of us have biases. So no one can stand here and say, I don't come in the peer review process without some prejudices about certain people, certain contexts, certain subject matters, certain topics. We all have biases. But what is important is to recognize and identify those biases and see how they can interfere with me doing an objective evaluation. Once we're able to identify them, then we can begin to work on how do I work on this bias. We can evaluate that bias. Where is this bias coming from? Why am I thinking this way? And we shall see how. Okay, so let's go to, let's look at 2 types of biases. So we have explicit bias and implicit bias. So explicit bias is the one we can all see. This turns into an action that is conscious. It occurs within our perspective awareness. So this one we can all it's within our consciousness. So we are aware of it. It kind of plays out openly. But then we have the implicit bias. This is the one that turns into an action that is very unconscious. It's not even in us. And we're going to see where those biases, how they manifest in peer review. It can occur outside our perspective awareness. So this one, it's not really, we don't have a lot of control. It's because there are things we have learned over time, and then they come and show up when we are doing a peer review. So let's be aware of those 2 types of biases, and especially the unconscious one. So common biases in peer review and assumption. Knowing the author's gender, the gender of the author, so can be female, male, non-binary, leads me to feel more critical of my review. So I'm looking at a paper and it's written by a man How does that influence how I'm going to review that paper? When I look at a science paper written by a woman, how do I engage as a reviewer? So gender is an important aspect when it comes to biases. Knowing the author's ethnicity or country of origin leads me to question the accuracy. Oh my, I'm really, my mother tongue influence is coming over. Knowing the author's ethnicity and country of origin leads me to question the accuracy and the reliability of the study. So look at the papers, even you read for your own literature review. Are you influenced by where the author's country of origin? If you see a paper written from the US or from Europe, how do you interact with that paper? What about a paper written from an author in Sudan, an author in Nepal, in India? How do you interact? So ethnicity, country of origin could be a potential area of bias. The country and the researcher's institute it can also be a place where you can be influenced. Maybe this is written by John Hopkins for those in health sciences. And then I'm looking also at a paper written by Codestria or another paper written by a research institute in Asia, in the Americas and all that. How do I engage with that paper? What about the respectability of the author? If it is a senior author, professor with enough titles, how does that reputation influence how I read that paper? Okay, as a reviewer, even the papers I also select for my own study, how does that influence? So these are the common biases, and that's what I was mentioning that these are sometimes they're very unconscious. You might think, no, me, I'm very gender open. I believe everyone is equal. But then when it comes to even how you select things, you realize, oops, you also have your own biases. So where are biases hidden in summary, in peer review? Biases are hidden in reputation of the author, in the ethnicity of the author, in the gender of the author, in the primary language and writing style. How many people have written excellent paper, but because English is not their first language, they struggle. So the science in the paper is excellent. It's only the language, but then they are marked down and they are not published just because of that. So as a reviewer, language can be a potential area of bias for you, and the writing style. So you concentrate so much on the writing style, you miss out on the richness of the science. The reputation of the author's institution. I'm reading a paper from Harvard published by, which are those major publication houses. So I'm reviewing that paper and I'm just thinking, these people, they do the excellent science. But then because I have another mindset of people from a particular region and particular institutions, it influences the country of origin of the author's institution, the number of authors on the manuscript. If I see one author and I see like 12 authors, what is going on in my mind? So think about where these biases could hide as you're doing peer review, and this is why you're being invited. Step one is to really, really look at your biases and work on them. So where do these biases come from? So let's look at a few sources of these biases. These biases are developed over time. These are norms that we learn, norms that are in policy, norms that are in practices, but these are systems of oppression. These are things like racism, colonialism, things like patriarchy. Patriarchy is where you elevate men. It's a world where men have more power and more dominance over women. Ableism, more in the space of persons with disability, and also cisgenderism. So these are the systems of oppression that now come and manifest when you're doing your review, and they become subconscious in you that you have to be aware of. That's why the previous speaker said, or maybe because that reviewer was from the US, he tarnished my work because I'm from this other part of the world. you see that perspective, you're basing it maybe because you've had other incidences of that there could be racism, there could be, you know, those ideologies. You are not wrong because it's something that exists. And that's why we are being invited to be aware of these systems of oppression that we have to be aware of that now influence the biases we bring in open peer review. So here is an example of, I want us to do a case study and use this methodology of identify, add, reverse, and rephrase to really work on our bias. So the example is the senior author of this particular paper was, someone has written a paper, they're a senior author, is at a late stage of their career, and therefore they are likely to be very experienced. Knowing this information that they are very experienced make me feel more confident that their work is accurate and their work is reliable and their data has good conclusions. So I'm looking at this paper. It's written by a senior author. So what my mind goes in my mind is that this is a senior person. I think I'm very confident because their work is accurate. I mean, I'm imagining their work is accurate, they are reliable, they've drawn good conclusions because they are a senior author. So I want us to go through working on this type of bias. How many have had this bias of the seniority of the author? Let's see on chat how the seniority of the author can influence. How many have fallen into this trap? Even in terms of the papers you choose. Let's see, okay. Point 4 of the common bias, should the seniority influence peer review? Some title declared in submitting. Should titles be declared? Yes, declare all your titles. I think you should declare all your titles. It is up to the peer reviewer then to look at, do titles influence how I review, and then engage with that bias. So you should not hide information in the thinking that I need to make the peer reviewer more objective. If I hide that I'm a professor, let it all out. It is now up to the peer reviewer to now be aware that I think when I read papers by senior people, I'm likely to be more biased than if it is written by an early career researcher. Yes, I will share the material, don't worry. I have just experienced this scenario yesterday. Okay, that's so good. Nuhu, you can explain further. Let me just finish this part and you can talk about it. So let's go through this example. So I have discovered that I'm feeling that because this paper is written by someone senior, I'm thinking their work is very accurate. So the first step of addressing that bias is, why do the author's years of experience lead me to believe that their work is really trustworthy? So the first thing is for me to identify. Once I look at that paper and I'm like, oh, it's written by this professor, this must be good work. I stop myself and say, but why am I thinking it is good work? Step 1 is identifying. Step 2, so you're thinking that because you know them, they are renowned. Maybe this is like, for those of us in development, this is like Amartya Sen, and they know you. So you're just thinking, there's no way this person can write bad work. Okay? Then the next step is to evaluate this bias. But is it logical for me to think like that? Is there a reason why I think the number of experience equals trustworthy work? Okay? Then, so I start looking at that. Is it really logical always that more experience you have, the better work you will produce? Okay? Then now I start thinking again, is this always true? Is it a guarantee that if you have many years experience in science, you will always do good work? Okay, so I start looking at that bias and then I change it and say, maybe there are certain situations where someone with a lot of experience may actually not do very quality work. One, they could be relying on other scientists. Maybe they've delegated this work. So it's been done by other people. It's not even been done by them because they didn't even have time to revise. So their name is there, but probably they did not even do it themselves. Maybe they were just the senior reviewer. Or maybe the number of years, even if this senior researcher has many years, they may not be familiar with a new technique. So they also don't have experience on something that is already new. So you see how I move from identifying the bias, questioning myself, why is this bias existing? Is it really true? And then I think rationally. Maybe it's not always true that if you're a senior scientist, you will always produce good work, because there could be things in between you don't know, new science, maybe you don't know AI, maybe all that. Okay? Then now I rephrase and say, although the author has a lot of experience, it is not always that they will produce rigorous work. Therefore, I really have to look at that manuscript from a lens of objectivity. Okay? I have to be thorough the way I would be thorough if I'm reviewing the work of an early career researcher. So I just want to leave 20 minutes for questions. So allow me to rush on the other steps, and so that we just give me 5 minutes, then we go to now questions. So the second step, remember, first step, we were dealing with the bias, and you can see how bias is important, because that is what makes a lot of peer review violent for most people. When you feel that the reviewer did not. So the first step is gaining conceptual. The second step is, how do you then, after you've checked your biases, then you look at the paper again. You do a fast read. You just read the manual without even evaluating, without checking everything, because you want to focus on understanding what this paper is about. How many people have reviewed a paper, and when you ask them, what was the author talking about? They have no idea, because they didn't get this initial understanding of the argument of this paper. The minute they started reading, they started giving comments. So step 2 is just reading, free reading of the paper, not being judgmental, and just writing questions. Or just you can write a few questions, some thoughts, but you're not commenting on the paper. So the goal here is to understand the content. That is step 2. Step 2 is understanding. So if you quickly rush to write comments, sometimes you may write a comment, then you find that the author has already even addressed it in the latter parts of the paper. But because you rushed in, you miss out on understanding how the whole paper comes together. Step 3 is now where you put your evaluation lens, where you now start looking at the paper, again, looking for what is positive about the paper, looking at what concerns you have about this paper, about the question, the research question. Is the design linked with the question? What kind of methods, what kind of results, what kind of conclusions are they making? And then you start highlighting them. So this is the second time you're reading, to pick out not just negatives, concerns, but also positives. Then now, once you are picking that, you're going to categorize them into major issues and minor issues. So what are the major issues in a paper? The major issues are those that concerns that they need to really address before that manuscript is published, because it really speaks to the science of the paper, the rigor of the science, because it will affect how they have interpreted the study. So that's a major issue. If the question is not aligning with the design, the results are not speaking to the conclusion, that's a major issue. So what are the minor issues? The minor issues are things that really, they will not affect publication. They just need to be neatened so that then the paper is readable, it's more coherent, it's more understandable. But it doesn't affect the science of the study. But you'll find some reviewers really focused on the minor issues. So examples of major issues would be an unethical approach, conclusions that are not supported by data, contradictory conclusions, not accounting for appropriate discussion of limitation, experimental designs with insufficient sample sizes. What about minor concerns? These are technical clarification. How did the reagent work? For example, the visualization, the typos, the grammar, wrong referencing. This is under the minor issue. So once you read the paper, categorize them like this so that the author also has a clear idea of what will actually make the paper not to be published, okay? So remember, you're not a copy editor as a reviewer. This work will be copy edited if it's on its way for publication. So don't dwell on the language. You're dwelling on the science especially. Then after you have now reviewed, written your major and minor issues, you now give feedback. What should the author do? You cannot leave people with issues without a way forward. So you need to give clear feedback. Clear feedback means it is more that the person has no doubt how they are interpreting what you're saying. They are not getting two meanings about your review. It is clear. Constructive means it is feedback that can be received well. It is not feedback that is insulting the person. It is feedback that someone feels this person really means well for me. Actionable is feedback that someone can actually do something with it, that they can actually integrate. And we are going to see an example of a bad feedback and a clear feedback. So an unclear, destructive feedback is when someone says this author should go back to Statistic 101. So when you tell someone that, go back to school, you're attacking them as a person, you're insulting their education, it's very offensive. How about a clear, actionable review? This is where you're telling the author, statistical X is typically used for data that is distributed normally. The data presented in these manuscripts appear to be highly skewed to the left. You see, you're giving the, and let me show you, I won't read all of it, but let me show you the what clear feedback will have. Clear feedback will have, you make an interpretation of what you're seeing, you give a reason of why you're seeing it this way, you give a recommendation, okay? So you see at the end is saying, the data presented in this manuscript appear to be highly skewed to the left. That is your interpretation. This distribution, the reason you're saying that requires non-parametric version of test X. So I know there are those maybe who are not in this subject area. So you give a reason. You interpret your finding, give a reason. I suggest, you see, you give a recommendation. I suggest you use this and this test. Then finally, you use the personalized language. I recommend to explicitly mention that the methods section justifying the choice accordingly, to explicitly mention the methods, okay? So this is how you can make feedback very clear, actionable. So you see, if you received this as an author, even in open peer review, in whatever review, you will know what to do. You have a reason. There's a reason why they've said, they've given a recommendation, and now you have a guided way. Final step, step 5, putting all this together, now summarizing everything. So you start with a summary of what the research was about, what are the main strengths of this paper, what are the recommendations. Then you start giving what were the minor and major issues, giving now for each issue, giving clear, actionable feedback, what can they do with it, and then other remarks. Then finally, you review your review. So you go back. Have I been influenced by any assumptions in this review? You check again. What are the strengths of this paper? Have I really written it in a way the person can address them? Does the feedback look constructive, clear, and actionable? Does it read well? Is the summary clear? And then you send it to the author. So my dear friends, I have spoken so much, but that is the journey towards really, it's one of the ways, I'm not saying it's the only way, but some of the ways in which we can improve peer review. And also for now that we are saying open peer reviews for everyone, so that even you who has never been invited to be a peer reviewer, you can follow some of these steps and actually do excellent review, either as a community or even amongst your peers. So now I invite your questions and comments. I've seen a lot on the chat as we've been addressing them. Yes, Kirich. Yes, so I will share immediately, don't worry. Great presentation, amazing, insightful. Okay, ask questions now. We have 14 minutes. Thank you. Yes. So this actually is open access. It is available. These presentations are available and I will share so that you can also teach others, have discussions with your journal clubs, with your lecturers, and really improve the process of peer review. So that's why we can make the claim that anyone can participate in peer review, because now there's some guidance on how you can actually do it. Yes, any questions, you can unmute. Back to you, Asta. Is it possible?
Thank you so
Okay.
much. A lot of you are asking whether I will share the presentation or not. Yes, we will be sharing the presentation, but it might take a while because tomorrow and day after tomorrow is weekend. And we will be uploading this on YouTube and we'll share the presentation along with the recording. So it might take, we'll send it by early next week. So
I can see a question. Is it possible to publish later a manuscript that is open? Yes, that is what we now call preprints. Some journals are now accepting preprints, and maybe if you want to publish in a particular journal, you can ask them beforehand if it's okay that you submit your paper for review as a preprint before you send it to the actual journal. So these days, and we can do, I think the other day we did a session, AuthorAID did a session on preprints. It's such a good way for you to have people review your paper before you actually take it for review. And it has shown to improve publication success, because now people have engaged with your paper, and most preprints undergo open peer review. Even for pre-review, the organization that I'm speaking about that develops some of this content, most of this content, they also do a lot of preprint review. How can one join the Open Peer Reviewers in Africa team? So I will let you know, because when we created the group, it was for that particular training. It's not so active, but let me see what opportunities are there for you to participate in even these open peer reviews with other scholars. Yeah, so I will also share that information in the slides. Any other question? You can unmute. We have 10 minutes. Okay, we will.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. I just want to share my experience of what you've just taught us, and I actually I appreciate most of those things that you are presenting here. They are really very important. Most importantly, the biases. And I just posted that I had the experience yesterday. I submitted an open review, and it was returned this morning that the paper had was like returned with a major revision. Well, I recommended and accept with minor corrections. So some of the biases that you just mentioned, I want to share is that I actually look at 3 factors affected my review. One of them is the seniority of the authors, as you rightly mentioned. And the second one is the number of authors. There are 15 authors from 4 different countries, from United States, from Netherlands, from Australia, and from Africa. The paper is originating from a country in Africa. I'm just trying to be silent about the specific country in Africa. Yet, another thing is the paper is 51 pages. voluminous with lengthy report. So I was carried along, and I look at it as very important and very comprehensive paper, only for me to recommend, accept, and then other reviewers dealt with the paper seriously, and then the paper was rejected. Was recommended with a major review. So these are some of the things, and I think how I wish I did not submit that recommendation yesterday. It would have been different in this morning. Thank you so much.
It is okay. It is a learning experience. And part of the open peer review would then be you sitting with other reviewers and even having a discussion. If that mindset is there, where you can now both discuss, how come you propose accept, what action, and then they said decline, what was the thinking? And then you can have an interesting discussion. But if that opportunity is as a learning opportunity.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. Thank you very much for the presentation, Madam Munene. My question is, I want you to throw more light on the example you gave where you reviewed a paper which had already been published. This is the first time I've heard of that. So what is the purpose? Is that something which will be done more routinely to review papers after they've been published? So what is the very purpose apart from being an academic purpose? Does it improve the publishing of the particular paper? I don't know whether I'm clear.
Yes, that's an excellent question. So in the scholarly space, we have what we call, someone can answer. If someone has an answer, they can answer.
Sorry, please, can I say something, please? I'm sorry that I'm coming in. I just want to say one or two things. Number one, the first, the gentleman that spoke, previous gentleman before the last, was saying something about, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I heard him clearly. Submission yesterday and the comments today. I just want him to know that in that kind of situation, though this is not the platform for that, but we should be very, very careful of predatory journals. You understand? As in, there are a lot of predatory journals out there, because that's, to me, that is just too fast. I've never seen that kind of, I've never heard of that kind of situation before, where you submit a day and after that day, there are a lot of comments already. I think we should be aware of that. That is for that. Now, for the last gentleman that just asked a question, I'm thinking more of critiquing that kind of paper, because you reviewing paper that is already published, I mean, there's no peer reviewing with that kind of paper anymore. I'll be thinking more of critiquing it, because there's something that we call critiquing. We critique papers that are already published. So I think it's more of critiquing rather than peer reviewing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Just to clarify that the one who spoke about comments was actually, he was a reviewer. He was part of a reviewer, a team of, how I understood, he was in a team of reviewers where they were reviewing an article which had over 51 pages. And he said that the paper is, it can be accepted with revisions, but the other reviewers said that it cannot be accepted. So I think that's how I understood. So he's a reviewer. He's not. Yes.
Oh,
and you're right. And you're right. Yes. For the published paper, why we do, it's another very important scholarly activity, which is called the critically appraising journal papers. So where you take published papers, and this is the purpose of many journal clubs, where you take a paper that has already been published and then you engage in it on a more, remember, it's not because something has been published means it is automatically without, you can never give a comment about it. No. Even if something is published, there is opportunity to hold discussion around it. So even there are tools that have been designed on how to do critical appraisal on a study which is a cross-sectional study. How do you appraise a study that was done through a systematic study? So we even have tools for all reviewing these type of journals that have used particular methodology. So it's a very important scholarly endeavor to review papers that have been published and creating communities to really discuss, because not always are they without, you can never miss something that should have been done better, that could have been framed better, a choice of methodology and all that. So we have many, yes, we have many comments on chat. So the ones who want to join that group, just give me this weekend. I establish which is the group you can join. Please allow me, because as I told you, the one we had, we don't do a lot of reviews, but I know there are others that are there that are very active. How can we correct the aspect of biases, particularly as it has to do with your country, tribes, because it actually happened to me last year, where my paper was accepted at review, but later rejected when they discovered my country is Africa. So you as a recipient of this, you might not have as much power, but you can raise concerns with the editor. How come my paper was accepted? Can I have justification for the rejection? You have that right to ask for clarification. So at the part of you being the recipient of this, it's a bit difficult, but you being the reviewer, you can actually address your own biases. That one you have in your control. You can address your own biases and make sure you do a good review. Any other question? Let's finish. Yes, so wait for the group. I'll tell you which group.
Aurelia.
This
is Mary. It's not a question, but I want to say that this presentation has been very good. As you are speaking, I was looking at a template for reviewing for one of the institutions that I'm connected. And I think it has helped me, because I'm looking at even something they were asking, whether the paper contains a brief description of research approach, research. You see, if you are the reviewer and you say it contains this, and this, without really saying whether the design was appropriate for the study and so forth. So I think I'm very happy, because now I think I will, now I'll be the one to tell them to redo it, or to alter this template, because actually it makes no sense. Because if you say a description, there may be a description, but the description is not appropriate. I remember this is a template. So I think I should say that I'm very happy, and it has helped me. And I'll look at some other parts also of the template, whether actually it would help to improve the work of the author. Apart, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. So you can use these materials to actually improve the templates that you're using in your own institution for reviewing. If you find that the feedback you're giving others is not clear to them, they're not even interpreting it, you're having to take a paper back 5 times, it could be how the review is being done. So you can use these materials, they're open source, as long as you acknowledge the authors, I think it should be okay. So I think we will stop there. I can see so many questions about high impact journals. These days we are saying even journal is good as an early career researcher, and it's not, and it's good peer review. Sometimes don't also aim for very high impact journals, because some of it, as you can see, some of the peer review is not very rigorous and people can be biased. If you find a good journal that I'm not saying don't publish in high impact, but also give a chance to high quality journals that are not considered high impact. Remember, even high impact score is also very political. It has been criticized, it's very political. Those that score themselves high impact is based on a certain perspective. So yeah, so it's good to aim there, but get a good journal also that can, So you can, and on the, someone is asking, how do you ask for a waiver? You just go to the website of the journal, and you can always talk to the editor. If they've not said there are waivers, you can write to them. Does your journal have a waiver for people from a particular context? And then they can be able to reply. So I think let me stop there. APC is article processing cost fee, as article processing fee. This is the money you pay to have your paper published in certain journals. Yeah. So yes. So I think let me stop there and hand it over to Asta.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody, for being so interactive. And thank you so much, Aurelia, for amazing session. It was a learning experience for me too. Learned a lot today. And thank you so much for a very meaningful interaction. I will be sending you slides, the PowerPoint presentation, along with the video recording of the session in the days to come within next week. We do have webinars and tea times that keep on happening in a regular interval at AuthorAID. So keep an eye out for that. And I will also be sharing a few links here before we take a group photo and depart for today. While I keep on explaining the links, you can start turning on your video if you would like for me to take a picture. So we have a scholarly community of more than 15,000 scholars, which you can also join by the Google group, and you can also sign up on our website, www.authoraid.info. We use Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. So whichever media, all or none or some of it that you feel comfortable with, please follow us there, stay connected. On our website, you will find a section where you can contribute the resources that you have found useful in the previous days in your scholarly journey that you can contribute. So there is the link where you can do that. You can also contribute the blog and articles based on your paper, based on your experiences, your opinions, or like today is World Hypertension Day. So we have published the article on hypertension. So this kind of relevant articles, you can do that. So the link is there. Yeah. So that's from my side. If you have any confusion about how to stay connected with AuthorAID, just let me know, yeah? Now I'll take a picture, and thank you so much, Aurelia. It was an amazing session. Loved it.
Thank you.
I hope, is this all the number of people who will be turning on the video? Or shall I wait?
Thank you. We need to share the video as well as the slide, if possible, via our Gmail.
Yeah, I will be sharing all the things. Yeah. Okay, smile everybody. I am moving on to next slide because a lot of us are here, and yeah, you can make some funny poses, like if you know of any. I can't because I have to take a picture, but I'd love to see that. Okay, like that. Yes, everybody, be creative. Okay, thank you so much everyone for joining in. I'll be posting these pictures on the social media sites that I just mentioned. So watch out for that. And stay connected with AuthorAID. We'd love to see you in upcoming online programs. We do have the massive open online course that are running. We have a lot of self-study courses that we have put out. You can check them out on our website and join the ones that you feel are relevant. Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. I think I'll end it now.
Thank you, Asta, for the support.
Thank you. Bye-bye. See you next.
Bye.